So as you all know, we've been covering the downfall of the Joe Rogan experience. And, it really hit full effect when he had on Donald Trump, gave him a hot stone massage, endorsed Donald Trump, also had on J.D. Vance. But more importantly, perhaps, when he had on like a new billionaire seemingly every other week. Whether it be Mark Andreessen or Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. He had on so many of these billionaire assholes, and what they would do is lie to Joe's audience, knowing he has this giant audience, somewhat impressionable audience. So they go up there, and one thing I remember specifically is they lied about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And they pretended like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was responsible for debanking, okay? When literally it's the opposite. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau protects people from debanking, but also they stop financial fraud. They stop big banks from taking advantage of regular people. They hold Wall Street in check. Basically, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the best way to describe them is the corporate cops. They're the only cop looking out for you to make sure big financial institutions don't screw you and rob you blind. So you got all these billionaires coming on, they bitch and moan about the CFPB. Why? Because they're committing fraud and they want to get away with it. And Joe Rogan sits there and lets them lie to his audience of millions and sits there and goes, really, bro? Oh, that's wild, bro. Oh, the CFPB, I guess that's bad, right, bro? And so it was then that, you look at it and you go, oh my God, you are so cooked. You are just gonzo mentally. You're a useful idiot for MAGA fascists. That's what you are. You're a useful idiot for the billionaire robber baron sadist class. Well, now it's fair to say the Joe Rogan experience has morphed into the Jeffrey Epstein experience. Because while Joe himself rejected a meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, to his credit, as we learned when Lawrence Krauss, a guest on his show, tried to get Joe to meet Epstein and he refused. What people don't tell you is, but he had on Jeffrey Epstein's private motherfucking chef. Never mind all the billionaires who are in the files. Never mind Donald Trump, who's literally mentioned more in the files than anybody else, 38,000 times. So now we have the Jeffrey Epstein experience. It's not the Joe Rogan experience. And he is panicking, and he's desperately trying to run cover for both Trump and Epstein in this pathetic display. So shout out to the YouTube channel, Too Lazy to Try. They do a lot of great work over there covering the Rogan sphere. And Epstein, I was going to say Epstein had on Mike Benz. No, Joe Rogan had on Mike Benz. But basically, this guy, while he pitches himself as like this, I'm this anti-establishment outsider, truth teller journalist. Really, he's just there to run cover for the Epstein class. And so watch this. This is crazy.
That's a very specific illicit desire to want underage people.
Well,
underage people. No, little girls, children, not underage people. Would you say, oh, he's an overage toddler? No, you wouldn't say that. Notice the softening of the language because he's protecting the Epstein class.
How do you even find out that someone's into that?
Well, I don't think that the majority or anything close to it of the women were technically, I think it was largely very young, barely legal, so to speak. And I know that there were cases of underage, but I think
most of it was just
very, very young, but not like
20-year-old
not
girls,
like 13 type thing. And then remember, because this is an international enterprise, and many of the clients are like in countries that don't necessarily have the same norms about that that we do. You can very easily see someone getting involved in that just because girls juice deals.
Girls juice deals? What the? By the way, that was all a lie. We literally have in the Epstein emails that leaked, Epstein had about 12 different passports of girls from the post-Soviet bloc countries. He had passports of girls, and they discussed buying and selling girls like their cars, okay? There's all these pictures with actual babies are fucking involved in this thing. Babies. Torture, death, like all sorts. They had a trap door underneath his Rape Island mansion where it goes right to the ocean. Gee, I wonder, why did he buy all that sulfuric acid when they opened up that case into him? This is soft peddling what Jeffrey Epstein is. This is soft peddling the shadow government of billionaire pedophile sadists who actually run the world. That's what this is.
So the Joe Rogan experience is just getting sad at this point. It feels like it's turned into a PR tool for the Epstein clients.
That's right.
After maybe the biggest file drop yet, Joe had on Mike Benz, who is an Elon Musk lackey. So of course there's no mention of Elon during this podcast, even though his emails are one of the biggest revelations from the files.
Can I please come to the island, Jeffrey? I sure would like to go to the island. I don't want to meet your diplomats in New York for the UN General Assembly. Why would I want to do that? And Epstein goes, hey, idiot, I'm speaking in code. Yes, we have a lot of, nobody over the age of 25. Would you like to join us? I'd like to come to your wildest party, sir, Mr. Epstein. Imagine being so unlikable that you're like the richest man in the world and the pedophile cabal of billionaire sadists, that's the shadow government that runs the world, goes, I don't know about this guy. Imagine getting rejected by Jeffrey Epstein. Musk tried to make it seem like it was the opposite. Like, oh, I told him to kick rocks. No, it was quite literally the opposite. He was like, can I please come to your island, sir? On fucking Christmas morning. He goes, I really need to cut loose. I'd really like to come to your island, but I want to go to your wildest party. I don't want to go for an easy, simple time, if you know what I'm saying. I want to get wild. On fucking Christmas morning. Oh my God.
Elon, Mr. Free Speech is threatening to sue people for talking about it or even associating him with the files. I'm sure Joe will have a lot to say about that. No, Rogan is cooked. People used to look forward to hearing him talk about stuff like this, but now he's way too connected to people involved with Epstein. So he has to ignore and downplay a lot of the information coming out. Also, a lot of his guests work for or are associated with people in the Epstein files as well. So he rarely hears an unbiased perspective on them. If he really wanted a good rundown of the recent file drop, he'd have on somebody like CoffeeZilla.
Yeah. CoffeeZilla's been doing a phenomenal job. He's released a bunch of videos on this. I use some of it for my channel, but there's so many people who know about this stuff. So many people. But he's gonzo. Mentally, he's gone. He would never have on me. He never had on CoffeeZilla. He never have on the Midas Touch guys. He never have on anybody who's gone through this stuff with a fine-tooth comb. He wouldn't. They're his friends, bro. The billionaires are his friends. The Epstein class are his friends. Donald Trump is his friend.
He's probably done the best reporting on it, and he's impartial. He has no incentive to protect anybody. So he'd be the best person to hear from. But instead, Joe talked about the recent files with Mike Benz, who's part of the establishment. He worked for the government. He worked under Trump's first administration, and he panders to Elon Musk. So this guy's not an objective source at all when it comes to the Epstein files. And during this podcast, he spent a lot of time trying to downplay, but also almost justify the child sex trafficking allegations and convince people that it wasn't a blackmail operation, which Rogan barely pushed back on. Like, he used to say it's a pedo island with cameras everywhere. They have dirt on all these high-profile people. But now it's like, were they really underage girls? Is there a blackmail operation?
And Jeffrey Epstein, for the past 3 years of their lives, has been the best weekend they've ever had. Has made them feel alive again in their mid 50s or 60s. Has opened all sorts of other deals for them, and this deal might work out. So I'm afraid that if I say no to Jeffrey Epstein on this deal, I'm not going to get an invite to the next party. I'm not going to be able to get laid again with.
In the public eye, the narrative is underage girls, and this is the thing that makes it so disgusting. When people talk about it, everyone says kids on the island. This is the big conspiracy about it, and this is the reason why people are so outraged about it.
My concern with the runaway train on that is that it's a massive manhunt for something that it may be true. To me, it's a needle in the haystack. It might be true. Good luck looking for it. It would seem ludicrous to me that Epstein doesn't mean it's impossible, but logistically, if Epstein ever directly threatened someone, proactively, that is, if the person tries to blackmail Epstein could, reactively say, well, I've got shit on you too. But proactively and really, really do someone in like that, and word gets around that happens, everything he built goes, the whole Rolodex finds out.
Oh my God. This is total baby brain stuff. But it's actually not, because he's just lying to protect these people. That's why we call it the Epstein class. It is literally a class of people that think they're better than you and me. Genuinely. They don't consider us human. They consider us subhuman. And they're a class all of their own. Think about it like an elite fraternity. In order to get into that elite fraternity, you might have to do some wild, nasty-ass shit, right? That's the hazing that, everybody knows about. This is like hazing on a grand level for pedophile billionaire sadists. They all have similar tastes. They're all into some freaky-ass, criminal-ass shit, which is why in the files, we learned many instances they're casually discussing torture. They're casually discussing murder. There's casually discussing stuff involving babies, okay? Then you have the code word stuff, the pizza stuff, the Chinese cookie stuff, the grape soda stuff. Guys, they all knew. They're all in on it. They're all in on it. They all have dirt on each other. And this is stuff that Epstein used. He sold it to foreign governments, the Russian government, the Israeli government, the Saudi government, the CIA. He had dirt on everybody. And Trump literally said to Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, this will hurt my friends if these files come out. Why? Because they literally know where the bodies are buried. Okay? Epstein, with all that sulfuric acid that he got the day that they opened up the investigation into him. With this guy, he is lying on behalf of the Epstein class. He is protecting the Epstein class.
He's trying to convince people it's not really worth looking into the underage trafficking and blackmail aspect of the files. But then he'd go on these long-winded monologues about the more important aspects of it, and he'd just be all over the place. Like, he'd be talking about Epstein, then jump to like 10 other topics, and people in the comments are just like, I've never heard someone say so much without saying anything.
By the way, the fact that Rogan is now losing his own comment section. For a long time ago, he lost his subreddit, where people on Reddit were like, hey, fuck, what happened to Rogan? This guy's gonzo. Like, I thought he used to be cool. Now I can't stand the fucking guy. Now, the people in his own comment section are going, really, Joe? Really? You're not going to talk about fucking Elon Musk at all? The guy that you're friends with, that you text with on a regular basis and was openly outed in the files? You're not going to talk about him at all? You're not going to talk about Peter Thiel, who lied to your fucking face and to your audience when he said, I looked at him for tax advice. That's what I did. I looked at him for tax advice. Meanwhile, he's in the files going, that was a fun time. See you in 3 weeks. Bro, you've been had, you've been took, you've been bamboozled, but now you're embedded in that world and you got a seat at the table, so you're abandoning your audience who comes to you for the truth to stay with the Epstein class. So pathetic.
And Rogan posted a clip of them talking about the Epstein files to the JRE Clips channel, and all the comments are negative, calling Rogan a sellout and saying he's compromised and trying to do damage control, because there's so much new information from the recent...
This guy's playing defense for those who were close to Epstein. This guy said a lot of words, but that's all that happened, LOL. The fuck is this guy talking about? Rogan coming out here doing PR for his boys. That's exactly right. They all see it now. They all see it now. Guess what? Joe Rogan fans are now becoming secular talk fans. Joe Rogan fans are now becoming fucking Midas Touch fans. Joe Rogan fans are now becoming Breaking Points fans. And they're leaving that shit in the past where it belongs. Because he's compromised. And he's sold out. This guy used to talk about, I'd never do an ad for a pharma company because that's unethical. Now, he's interrupting conversations with ads, something else he said he'd never do. And it's ads for fucking DraftKings. There's no principles among these people. There's no morality. There's no ethics. There's no values. He doesn't have a standard. I've never had a conversation with an advertiser once, and I never fucking will. I didn't sell out my integrity to snuggle up to the fucking Epstein class, which is exactly what he's doing.
Files released, and it seems like Joe and his guest didn't talk about any of that. And instead, his guest tried to convince people that it's not really worth looking into the child trafficking aspect of it. You know, the most heinous part of the files isn't worth looking into.
The 2011 Joe Rogan would hate this Joe Rogan. By the way, just like Bill Burr. Just like the old school Bill Burr would hate the new Bill Burr who sold out to Saudi Arabia. Bro, this is not the Epstein conversation we wanted. They really have you by the balls, Rogan. Damn fucking right.
So we used to hear Epstein had compromising tapes and pictures on all these high-profile people. You know, his whole house was rigged with cameras, but now Rogan's guest is trying to convince us that there was none of that because word would get out. He tries to say if Epstein told someone he has dirt on them, they'd go running and tell their wife, which just sounds ridiculous. You know, if Epstein told someone he had a video of them molesting a kid, I don't know if they'd want to go tell someone about that, especially their wife. Also, he's like, nobody's even ever claimed they've been blackmailed by Epstein. But again, why the hell would you admit that? Why would you want to tell anybody if you were? And I'm sure a lot of the blackmail is implied. Like, Epstein didn't really have to threaten many people because you just assume if you're at an Epstein party, there's probably video of it.
I've never been convinced that the central role of the Epstein young girl, in my view, sidebar of the Epstein money laundering story is that it was for blackmail. And part of this is because...
By the way, so why is he doing this? He's protecting Mossad in Israel. He's protecting Russian intelligence. He's protecting the CIA. And he's protecting Saudi intelligence. Because like they pointed out, too lazy to try pointed this out, this guy is a deep state character. He worked for Marco Rubio. He's part of the establishment. So, of course, he's going to protect the CIA and Mossad in Israel, okay?
The moment Jeffrey Epstein formally, officially threatened somebody with blackmail, and that person tells his wife, and that wife tells her friends, and that gets out to somebody else that knows Jeffrey Epstein's access goes away overnight. That's the sort of thing that even a rumor of that spreading, and nobody else is going to want to do business with them.
So you think people just assume it's blackmail because that is how you would blackmail someone, especially underage girls?
I think it is very possible that there could have been indirect blackmail, meaning Epstein passes it on to an intelligence service, to a corporate espionage client or something. But even then, I mean, imagine, for example, if, like on the Bill Gates thing, like there was Bill Gates gets an email, I have a video of you sleeping with this person. And, or somebody much lower level, the moment they send that to the press, if, in order to, they figure they have nothing to lose. I mean, there's not been anybody in the 7 years that's
Imagine making this case when we learned that Bill Gates specifically was blackmailed. That's what we just learned in the files. It's like he didn't even go through the fucking files.
transpired, who said, I was personally blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. I think because the moment you do that, nobody comes to your parties anymore. You lose all the access. You lose all the deal flow.
And it's funny he mentions Bill Gates because that's an example where it looks like Epstein was definitely trying to blackmail him. Like Epstein was trying to hold that prostitution story over his head to get him to do business deals, which was one of the biggest takeaways from the files. So it's weird now he's trying to tell us that there's no blackmail when we basically got proof of it from the recent files. And it's also weird he's trying to convince us that there wasn't much trafficking of underage girls going on, because he also at the same time talks about how the societal norms and laws are different in other countries, so it isn't as frowned upon to be with young girls, like implying that maybe he did traffic young girls, but he was facilitating them to people in other countries where it isn't as big of a deal.
And clearly they don't mention any of the torture. There's so many references to torture in the files. They don't mention any of the murder. They don't mention any of the I'm so happy I didn't kill anybody the other night. They don't mention the trap door underneath his rape island. They don't mention any of that.
Compared it to this other company that was working with the U.S. government, it was trafficking underage girls to high-profile people in the Middle East. And their defense for it was the government wanted them to help facilitate deals, and this was the best way to go about it.
U.S. military and CIA contractor for logistics and institutional support and military assistance on the ground for the U.S. military all over the world. They got in trouble basically trafficking underage kids to Middle Eastern sheikhs. And I believe the reason that was alleged by Congress that they did that was to juice the deals with them.
Stop saying juice the deals. Stop saying that. Stop saying that.
Your purpose for the U.S. government to be this outside, plausibly deniable, but extensively infrastructured professional support outfit on the ground, you need the support of the local government. You need the support of the local high-level officials. They need to be happy.
He's literally justifying and rationalizing, like the stuff we learned coming out of Afghanistan, that we worked with these warlords to fight the Taliban, but it turns out the warlords they were like graping young boys to the point of one American soldier saw a young boy chained to the bed of one of these warlords that we were doing business with. And he told his higher-ups, and he was dishonorably discharged over telling the truth. And what he's doing is providing a rationale as to why, no, you have to accept that our allies are going to grape underage boys.
Currencies for that. There's financial payoffs, and there's other things they might like parties and young women, especially in places where being with the very young female is not illegal. And so I believe their argument was, well, you wanted us to do this thing on the ground. You wanted us to help the U.S. military and kind of covert support nodes that were happening here. We had to do it somehow. This is part of what helped us do that. I would not be surprised if the
literally rationalizing the grape of kids.
Epstein trafficking apparatus started with similar motivations. That's not necessarily for blackmail, but because it makes clients or customers or VIP people happy. It makes them owe you something. It makes them want to get involved in a deal you do. And then, remember, because this is an international enterprise, and many of the clients are in countries that don't necessarily have the same norms about that that we do. You can very easily see someone getting involved in that just because girls juice deals. And
stop saying girls juice deals. Oh my God. We need to launch this guy into the sun.
So I don't think that Epstein. I've not seen evidence, and in my view, you don't need any of that to understand the core part of the Epstein story that has relevance to your life today in terms of your own government and the workings of power and corporate finance and the like.
So this is what the Joe Rogan experience has turned into. It's crazy. And he'll probably just ignore Elon's emails and all the relevant information in the files. Now he's got to be really careful when he has on his comedian friends, because they usually just go off about this stuff and don't hold back. I mean, it seems like every episode he does now with Theo Von, Tim Dillon.
Oh, you got to be careful, dog. You got to be careful, dog. Tim Dillon, he gets around you, Joe. You're going to be cutting him off and changing the topic quite a bit, aren't you?
Dillon or Kurt Metzger, and he gets really uncomfortable and tries to change the topic a lot because he doesn't want to upset his tech friends and his friends in the government who are all over the Epstein files.
They literally are the Epstein class, and he's protecting them.
But hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe he'll surprise me and have on someone like Whitney Webb or CoffeeZilla, but I doubt it. I think he's in too deep. Let me know what you guys think about it, though, and check out the Patreon if you want to hear about how Rogan's guests keep exposing him.
Yeah, so everybody check that out. Too Lazy to Try does some great work. But guys, stop and think about it. Elon Musk was completely and utterly outed in the files. He didn't say a goddamn word about it. And we know he texts with Elon all the time. He's in regular contact with him. He's had him on the podcast so many times. He's probably going to have him on again. I told you, he's either going to say nothing spin it for Elon, or have on Elon to do damage control. There's no way he's going to go out there and tell the truth. But beyond that, even when it comes to Trump, guys, let me explain something to you. Here's what we learned about Trump from the Epstein files. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can. Ready? We have Trump allegedly graping a girl named Dusty in the year 2000 from Oklahoma, and she was found with her head blown off, and cops didn't think it was a suicide. Okay? We know that Bannon had a picture of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on a plane in 2021. We learned that Mar-a-Lago was subpoenaed in the Ghislaine Maxwell investigation because they thought that was the hub of the child trafficking was coming out of there. We know that Epstein had a full drawer dedicated to pictures and documents about Donald Trump. And the FBI posted that and then pulled it down when they realized they posted that. They accidentally outed Trump there. We know that Epstein knew everything about Mar-a-Lago's financing, including Trump doing mortgage fraud over there. How did he know that? Why would he know that? We learned about a limo driver in Dallas in the 90s who said he heard Trump talking to a guy named Jeffrey on the phone about, quote, abusing girls. We know about Katie Johnson, the lawsuit from 2016, where she alleges in 1994, when she was 13, she was raped by both Trump and Epstein. We learned about in 2011, Trump spent hours at Epstein's house with one of the victims, and Epstein casually talked about that on an email in 2011. So we know they have tapes of Trump with girls. We know that Epstein was leaking stuff to the media about Trump right before he died in the custody of the feds. We knew that Trump was still close with Epstein in his first term. We knew that there's pictures of Trump buying a girl from Epstein with a giant check. We have the picture of Trump with a stain on his pants that Michael Wolff told us about, where there's young girls bending over and he's standing there and he's smiling and he's got a stain on his pants. We know there were private parties hosted at Mar-a-Lago with just Trump and Epstein and underage girls. We know that Epstein learned human trafficking from Trump's teenage modeling agency. We know that Trump wrote a creepy love letter to Epstein on his birthday. We know that they shared a girlfriend in the 90s. We know that Epstein knew the inner workings of the Trump White House in the first term. We learned that Trump and Melania, allegedly the first time they had sex was on the Lolita Express. We learned that Trump was on Epstein's plane at least 8 times that we know of, and he went to the island. And we learned that they were best friends for a fucking decade from the Michael Wolff tapes where Epstein was caught saying that recorded, okay? How many of those things were mentioned on the Joe Rogan Experience? Zero, donut, nada, zilch, none of it. You're telling me he didn't know a single one of those things? He didn't know not even one of those things did he hear in passing that he felt like maybe I'll bring this up after I had Trump on, soft-pedaled the interview with him, and then fucking endorsed him, and now I'm sitting here casually watching him usher in fascism. I'm not going to bring up anything about the fact that he's a fucking pedophile, war criminal, rapist. Nothing on that. What a sick disgrace this man is. No integrity, total sellout, total loser, total hack. And now, guys, stop and think about this. Joe Rogan has fallen so thoroughly that now Andrew Schultz has been faster to a mea culpa than he has. Tim Dillon has been faster to start telling something closer to the truth than Rogan has. How embarrassing is that? When you get destroyed on the issue of integrity by fucking Andrew Schultz, retire. Dude is so washed.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.